You know, Max, now you know I must love you. We are here at the Knicks game, Madison Square Garden. Now, customarily, I don't believe people belong here with me. I believe that they're not worthy. They haven't earned it. But you are the exception. I have listened to you talk about basketball, and although I feel like I've had to educate you on several occasions, I must confess that you really know your basketball. So I said, you know what? I got to show him his respect by doing something I have never done, which is bring one of my boys to the Garden.
Now I'm going to let you in on a secret, okay? This is like when you cut through it all, the number one reason I wanted this job. Because, like,
really?
you know, I'm on the 6 o'clock Sports Center standing next to Stephen A. talking about the Knicks and the NBA. And, you know, now I have access to the NBA in a way that nobody does. That's the number one reason.
Finally found himself the perfect wingman. What's up, everybody? Welcome into First Take on this Friday Eve. Guys, I enjoyed that little bromance you had right there at the Garden. That was cute.
Well, the only thing that I didn't like about it is that he got to leave a little bit early so he could be there. I had to literally stay for the entire atrocity that took place at Madison Square Garden last night, which is why I'm still in New York. Go figure.
I feel
Unbelievable.
like if the Knicks left early, I get to leave early, you know?
Yeah. I got it. I got it. Fair
Actually,
enough.
one could argue they left earlier than Max.
Yeah, that's
one could
right.
argue they left earlier than Max.
Once I saw them file out, I was out.
No question. Let's get into it, gentlemen, shall we? The Cavs, they ran New York last night with a 126-94 win at the Garden. After the blowout, Carmelo Anthony was asked about Phil Jackson's assertion that Melo holds on the ball too long in the triangle offense.
Phil had made some comments that kind of caused a little stir about the way you maybe hold on to the ball a little too much.
Come on, man.
Do you have any reaction?
Thank you, man. Sorry, man. I don't want to answer those questions.
Is it, I mean, you guys have this space right here. Is it productive to talk about it like that? What's the game?
I don't know. I don't even know what was said, so I just don't want to get into it. I mean, I don't even know what was said, to be honest. I just don't even want to talk about that. What are you talking about exactly? I want to stay away from that at this point. My focus is my teammates and winning. We've been playing great basketball. And that's the only thing I'm focused on. Whatever Phil said, he said. I have nothing to say about that.
Just living up to his name, feeling kind of mellow there. Stephen A., does Carmelo Anthony, should he demand a trade at this point?
Yeah, I think he should. You know, Max, you know I've known Carmelo Anthony for a long, long time. One of the things that Carmelo Anthony and I adamantly disagree about is that I've been on him to ask out of New York, and I'm a diehard Knicks fan. I'm a native New Yorker, but I got a lot of love for Carmelo Anthony. In this situation with Phil Jackson, Carmelo's not built for this. Carmelo is real. Carmelo is one of those individuals that he will refrain from saying anything at all rather than dance around an issue and say things that, you know, without saying what he really wants to say. And, you know, he's never told me this because I have to be completely honest about this. He's never told me this. But again, I've known him for more than a decade, closer to 15 years, actually. And I'm telling you right now, I don't think he likes Phil Jackson. I know I don't like Phil Jackson, and I can't blame him for not liking Phil Jackson. And here is why. Because of situations like Carmelo Anthony had to deal with last night. Here you are in the media capital of the world, clearly in a position where you're going to be flummoxed by just an avalanche of reporters because of something this man said when he's sitting in the stands for home games, when he ain't traveling to road games unless they're to L.A., which is where he lives most of the time. And that's about it. And not only that, he's responsible for the absence of talent that's around you because he hasn't been able to put it around you, not with any degree of efficiency. It's something that's an absolute joke, and yet Carmelo Anthony has to deal with this. Now, you got to understand, this is entirely different than New York or, Chicago or L.A. Yes, Chicago is the second city. Yes, L.A. is the second largest market in the United States of America. But, excuse me, but you notice, Max, the reporters, the amount of reporters that are there don't compare to the amount of folks covering the New York teams. That's number one. And number two, those teams were relatively successful. Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls didn't stink up the joint. They were showstoppers. You look at Kobe Bryant and the Los Angeles Lakers. Even when Phil took over, he didn't take over a dormant, perpetually dysfunctional franchise. He took over dudes that were tinkering on trying to win a championship. They just needed coaching. They needed somebody to bring the pieces together. This is an entirely different situation. The New York Knicks stink for the most part. This year they're better, basically average, and because of that we thought there was cause to celebrate. But then in the midst of all of that, you ticked off LeBron James, who came into the Garden, embarrassed you along with Kyrie Irving and the rest of Cleveland, by the way, because they hit 22 three-pointers, which is a Garden record for crying out loud against the Knicks. And then on top of it all, they're adding insult to injury by having a water bottle contest during the game.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
This is the kind of stuff that's happening.
We're going to get into that.
And Melo subjected to it is all I'm trying to say. He's not built to have a bunch of people coming at him to have to answer about what his boss says about him, because what Melo wants to say about him, Max, is you know what you can kiss, but he can't do that. And that's hard for him.
Melo's also not built to be the best player on a championship team. Never was, or it happened already. But this ain't a championship team. It's not. It's certainly not. But almost no matter, if you have a championship team, then by definition there'll be a better player on it than Carmelo Anthony, and he's an excellent player offensively. I understand that. The question is, should he demand a trade? And the answer is no. The Knicks should trade him, but he shouldn't demand it because the Knicks will get less back for him. I suppose from Carmelo's point of view, he should demand it because then that lowers his trade value, and wherever he's going gets to retain more of their assets and therefore be a better destination for him. But from the Knicks' point of view, they should trade him now. They should have traded him last year. They should have traded him a long time ago, so the sooner they trade him, the better. It's not because he's not good. He's very good. It's because they're never going to win a championship with him. His age doesn't coincide with Porzingis' age in a way that will ultimately lead to them winning a championship. I agree with you that Carmelo deserves better, and maybe the Knicks don't, but if you root for the Knicks, which I have for most of my life, then you'd like them to get something good for him. And what should they get for Carmelo Anthony? Well, when you look at the league right now, the Knicks did a lot of stupid things in their day, among them handing Joakim Noah a 4-year deal to the tune of about $20 million a year. That's not over till the year 2019-20. Joakim Noah, if you watched last year, you knew that was an insane thing to do. Every time he sits on the bench, the team functions better. They have Kristaps Porzingis, maybe a kind of transcendent talent, we'll see, but certainly a guy with a ton of upside. You need to build around him. So what do you do with Carmelo? In this NBA, you need a penetrating point guard who can make good decisions and shoot the three. They don't have that right now, and Derrick Rose is a free agent. They're going to have to figure out what they want to do there. And you need versatile 3-and-D players who can switch on defense and hopefully 3-and-D plus. Right? But guys like Nicholas Batum, now the league has recognized that, so guys like Batum are now getting max deals. But young players like Jay Crowder types, if they could flip Carmelo Anthony into a couple of Jay Crowders, young players to put with Porzingis, and then continue to look for the right point guard, that would be a step in the right direction, even though they have that idiotic contract on the books to Joakim Noah. Even Courtney Lee I like a lot, and even that contract, he's 31 years old, it's a 4-year deal, they're going to pay for decline, but okay, at least Courtney Lee is the right kind of complementary piece were he younger. You're looking for Courtney Lee plus 2 of those guys for Carmelo, and you could get it.
Well, you're not wrong about the things that you just broke down. You're just off subject. And here's why I'm saying that to you, Max. Because when we ask the question as to whether or not Carmelo should demand a trade, we're not talking about the nuances that would work in the event that he's moved. We're talking about why should he feel like this is a place he doesn't want to be in.
Well,
and I'm saying that's where we're at because it's about Phil Jackson.
You're saying it's about Carmelo's desires. You're saying it's about what Carmelo wants. I'm taking it from the other point of view. What about what would be best for the Knicks?
But I'm saying we agree there. But if I'm saying what Carmelo should do and why, I'm speaking to what Phil has not done. And see, this is one of the things that I will talk about this a little bit later on in the show. But no one wants to highlight the ultimately what's the most egregious part about what Phil has or has not done. If you're being paid $12 million a year, Max Kellerman, You are the guy, the president of basketball operations. You've got that name. You've got that cachet. You and I both know the primary responsibility is your ability to go out there and get marquee individuals to consider coming to this franchise because they know you're the overseer of it. You're the head. This man can't even get dudes to sit down and have dinner with him. This is what it is. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and then you're willing to nitpick about the one bona fide dude that you have on offense, even though Kristaps Porzingis is definitely the future of the franchise. Nobody's denying that. But what I'm saying is, with Carmelo is there, with you willing to pay him $122 million, you got to remember what they were willing to do. Phil Jackson was advertising market. This is the building block. We want you. We need you here. Here's what our vision is. Here's what we're trying to do. But you give him a rookie coach who's never coached on any level in Derek Fisher. You follow that up with Kurt Rambis after getting rid of Derek Fisher in the middle of a season because he was telling you that damn triangle is outdated. It ain't working anymore. We don't have the personnel for that. You sit up there and hold up Kurt Rambis from ended up taking a college job in California, which is where he really wanted to go. You keep him on as an assistant coach. You bring on Jeff Hornacek, and you're still talking about the triangle.
No doubt, Stephen,
and then in the same breath that you're doing all of that, you're nitpicking about Melo. It's not right.
There's no doubt Phil Jackson has not done the best job. However, under his auspices, they did draft Kristaps Porzingis. Even if that's him trusting his people,
you mean after they tanked the season? After they tanked the season that he swore they wouldn't tank, so they could position themselves for the number 4 overall pick?
If you tell me that you can draft another Porzingis this upcoming year, I'd say tank the rest of this season too if you get another guy like that. That's not a problem.
No. Here's why it's a problem, Max. Because you paid Melo first. So what you did was hoodwink. I can't believe you, a native New Yorker, is missing this point. He hoodwinked New Yorkers into believing that you were trying, when in fact what happened was you paid Melo, then stuck up the joint, and you were in a position to draft Porzingis after that. That's the point.
The reason that they can't get free agents, not just marquee free agents, not just guys with names, the reason they're relegated to trading for has-beens in terms of that level, like Derrick Rose, and it pains me to say that, that's a tragedy, but it's what it is. He's an average point guard. He used to be elite. The reason they have to go the marquee way instead of actually the best player route is because they don't want to come to New York, and it's not just the dysfunction of the franchise. Were Carmelo Anthony a greater player, then a core of him and Porzingis right now would be more enticing to free agents. But it's not. Carmelo, they'll never win a championship with him as the best player. They got to move him. No knock against him. It's just the level he is. It's high. It's not high enough.
I'm clearly not making my point well enough for you.
You're blaming Phil Jackson.
You could have let Melo just walk.
But then you get nothing for him. This way you split him into assets.
Wait a minute. You're paying him $122 million right now.
Right.
Okay? You kept him there. My point to you is that if Melo were gone, because you could have worked out a sign and trade at the time, I'm saying to you, with Melo being here, you gave the impression you were trying to be competitive. When in fact, what you could have done is let him go, stunk up the joint, still been in a position to draft Porzingis, if not Karl Anthony Towns, and you could have went that way. All I'm saying to you, the vision of Phil Jackson is what we're talking about.
I think this is not a Phil Jackson issue, Stephen.
You can bring Carmelo Anthony. Hold on. You can bring Carmelo Anthony up all you want to. I covered a 6-foot guard in Allen Iverson, who was a guy that shot most of the time. Wait a minute. He shot most of the time. You keep bringing that up about Melo Iverson. I am telling you, Larry Brown with Billy King, with Pat Croce, came to Philadelphia and surrounded Allen Iverson with complimentary parts because they knew that they weren't going to get them to do that. That's Phil's job.
Yeah, but you're blaming it on Phil Jackson, and that's actually a Knicks bad franchise, starting with James Dolan, arguably the worst owner in sports. That's a Knicks bad franchise issue. This didn't start with Phil Jackson never having the long view and saying, let's get out of a bad deal and start from scratch. This is the Knicks with a rabid, irrational fan base that will sell out the Garden, at least in terms of ticket sales, that will do a number on TV as long as they have the pretense of trying to make a playoff push. So they're never willing to sacrifice the short-term finances of that in order to build for the long run. They're always serving two masters. On the one hand, convince New York you're being competitive. On the other hand, build a winning team. You can't do both.
You're wrong.
They can't.
You're wrong. You're wrong. And here's why you're wrong. And here's why you're wrong. Nobody since the days of Dave Checketts, when Charles Dolan was running the show, not his son James, nobody has had the cachet that Phil had. You cannot ignore. I can understand if Phil hired the Larry Browns or Phil sat up there and had the Jamal Crawfords and the David Lees and people like that. No, Phil brought in, even though he's re-signed Carmelo Anthony, he brought in Derek Fisher, who never coached. He wanted to give the job initially to Kurt Rambis to succeed him. Then ultimately he brought in Jeff Hornacek. When you look at some of the things that Phil has done, you can't blame that on Dolan. Dolan's the owner. He cuts the check. Phil has had autonomy. What has he done with it?
You're saying that Phil Jackson hasn't maneuvered with his cachet, with his credibility around the league well enough. I agree with that. But this issue with the Knicks...
Well, that's fine. Then why can't we stop there?
He's made plenty of mistakes. This issue with the Knicks predates Phil Jackson, and the question is, should Carmelo ask out of town? I suppose you can say, yes, it's in his best interest, but my point is the Knicks should move him and should have moved him long ago. They can't move him soon enough.
All right, guys, we got to leave it there. The Knicks...
I would remind you, by the way, Molly, I would remind Max Kellerman that the 2 seasons before that, Mike Woodson guided the Knicks to 54 wins and an Atlantic Division crown and a trip to the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Let's not act like Phil. What I'm just saying, the point is that they certainly didn't stink the way that they do now.
They should hang an Atlantic Division banner at the Garden.
I know this one's personal for you, but we got to move on.